Okay, so we are rolling live here for our final segment, closing out 2 days of coverage at FPA NorCal. And we started great, and we're going to end great as well. So we have with us right now Dave Haughton, who is the Chief Counsel,
Senior Corporate Counsel.
Senior Corporate Counsel. This is what happens when you kind of fly and don't go with notes. Senior Corporate Counsel at, of course, wealth.com. Dave, thanks for taking some time here.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here.
All right. So we were talking a little bit off camera, and there's a lot we could talk about. We only have about 10 minutes. So we narrowed it down to two topics. The evolution of estate tech. And, you know, at Sovereign, we've been looking at estate tech pretty heavy for the past year. And I can tell you there's been a huge amount of change just over the past 12 months. And then the other part is, what is it, UPL?
Unauthorized practice of law.
Yeah, and the concerns thereof, and should we really be that concerned? So maybe let's start off with the tech. I know you're not a tech guy, but give us a little bit of a state of the union. Where are we with wealth tech today?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think that there's been a lack of access to estate planning as far as like how accessible is estate planning to the normal person. Only about 33% of people have an estate plan is what they say as far as
really
the statistics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, a lot of that has to do with the cost, having to go to an attorney, how much time it takes, all those sorts of things that have kind of been a barrier to access to estate planning. And so I think it's been really great that there's been all these tools that have been coming available to be able to not only allow people to make estate planning more accessible as far as creating their estate plan, but also visualizing to understand what is my estate plan and how does it work. And I think advisors are super critical to that. Advisors, I used to practice, I was an estate planning attorney, and I wish that I had incorporated advisors more into the process, because when I'm an estate planning attorney, I meet with a client, I meet with them for maybe an hour, and then we decide, how they're gonna their estate is gonna flow when they pass away.
Yeah.
I might meet with them, maybe a follow-up meeting, and then they sign their documents. Their advisor is with them all through their lifetime, essentially, after they have investable assets. And they're calling their advisor for all kinds of reasons. They're having annual meetings. They're a trusted resource. That's why this should be really integral into the process.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think, estate tech has really, it seems like, been really focused on financial advisors, because they're really the motivator for clients to help push those numbers up, where it's not 33% anymore, and we can tick that up so that more and more people have an estate plan that works for them, and more people understand what their estate plan currently says.
Yeah.
As far as estate tech is concerned, that has been not only offering options to be able to create your estate plan, but also to visualize them. Obviously, AI has been incredible over the past few years.
Yes.
The ability to upload a trust, to be able to visualize that, summarize that within minutes, and be able to provide flowcharts that shows how the estate plan works and what opportunities may be available to edit that estate plan to bring it more in line with your current family circumstances, with the current law, I think is really, really important, because, again, going back to when I was practicing, we weren't providing flowcharts to clients. We were giving them a binder that had their legal documents that they would have to read through it to understand it. And none of this nice, easy layman's terms, flowcharts, and
pretty
things.
pictures.
Exactly, pretty pictures,
Yeah.
Things that make it easier to understand,
Sure.
that look nice. I think it's been fantastic where estate tech has been.
I completely agree. We're getting more and more into it at our shop at Sovereign. And the way I've been explaining it to clients is simply this, and I'd love to get your take on it. We put it forward to them as estate organization everyone needs, and estate tax reduction planning, which some people need, right? So not everyone needs that, right? If you got, $1 million net worth and you're in your late 80s, you're probably not worried about estate tax, but you still have to organize your estate. And a piece of content that you put out, and for those of you that don't follow Dave online, you should, because as I said, and I truly mean this, his posts are both hysterical but really actionable and have really good content. Like, it's hard to get both. I know a lot of folks on LinkedIn that are funny, but content's a little soft, or some great content, and but it's like reading, the encyclopedia. So you do a great job with that.
I appreciate that.
No, it's true. But the way I put it to our clients is simply this, and it was, I think, from one of your posts on how a kid going to college should have an estate plan. I wouldn't call it estate plan in my parlance. It would be estate organization, meaning that healthcare proxy. And I never thought about that. And we have a child who's going to be going off to college in another year or so. And if he gets hurt, he's 18, and I want to get the medical records, I can't, even though it's my son. So everyone, I would argue, needs some estate organization. Everyone needs that. Some people need the estate tax planning as well, and I think the software is doing a good job to help bring that to the masses.
Absolutely, and I think part of that goes to making estate planning more accessible.
Yeah.
We're talking about, like, I know when I was 18 years old, 20 years old, I wasn't going to go sit with an attorney and having a power of attorney drawn
That's
up,
right.
or a healthcare proxy. But my parents would have loved if I did that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they understood that if something had happened to me, they had been making decisions for me my whole life.
Yeah.
I was probably still a dependent on their tax return,
Yeah.
a dependent on their health insurance, but legally, I was not a dependent as far as the hospital was concerned, as far as making decisions, as far as the bank was concerned, as far as being able to access assets. And, estate tech, those types of things where you can make it more accessible to be able to allow children of clients, 18, 20 years old, they're going off to college, to be able to make those basic documents, those powers of attorney, those healthcare powers of attorney, can be really critical, because we all know people who are younger, things happen across any age. Everyone needs an estate plan. The difference is what level of sophistication do you need, right?
That's right.
So when you're young, you need powers of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney. When you get a little bit older, you might need a will to have guardians for the children.
Yep.
When you get a little bit older, your net worth expands, it gets a little bit more sophisticated. And then, in later years, obviously the priorities change. It could be estate tax planning, things of that nature. But everyone needs an estate plan. It's just a level of sophistication that you need. And, I talk about a lot that only 33% of people have an estate plan. It's not actually true. Everyone has an estate plan.
Right.
It's just,
Yes.
did your state politicians create it?
Correct.
Or do you want to create it on your own?
Yeah.
And
That's
so
a good way to put it, too. That's a nice way to put it.
It's very critical, and it's a motivating thing for people to understand that.
Right.
That if you don't plan for yourself, then the state plan for you through their state politicians.
Right.
And who knows when those laws were written.
Right, and probated and all that good stuff.
Right.
That's a really good way to put a point on that. Okay, so we just have a few minutes left, and I do want to pivot over to the whole idea of there are some advisors still that are concerned, like, am I going to put myself out there as practicing law? Am I going to get into trouble doing this? Am I going to have compliance issues? What do you tell those guys?
Yeah, I mean, especially when it comes from the wealth.com perspective, and I'm sure other platforms, it's very, very critical that we make sure that advisors are kept safe when it comes to the unauthorized practice of law. Mm-hmm. We know that these tools are built and designed for helping clients with estate planning. We know estate planning is something that has historically been reserved for attorneys. Only attorneys practice in estate planning, and if you have a client who has an estate planning need, you're going to refer them over to the attorney and kind of wash your hands of it. But again, talking about making it more accessible, motivating the clients, that's not the best system, right? Because now clients are put into this area where now they have to go on their own, trying to meet with the attorney, get the estate plan done, which a lot of times is great, and that's what they need to do. But the advisor should be more involved in it. So the way that Wealth.com built the platform is to make sure that there's kind of like a UPL, unauthorized practice of law firewall between the advisor and the client, where the advisor has their own portal where they have their own tools, and then the client has their own portal where if they're going to create their own documents, they're going to do that all on their own. They're going to make the clicks by themselves. They're going to go through the system and create their documents. Certainly the advisor is there for educational reasons, to be able to, at a high level, be able to guide them and provide resources, but the client themselves are the one making the decisions. And so, that's really been important in building platforms to make sure that there is that firewall between the client and the advisor. And, obviously we work with a lot of RIAs, and this is a significant concern. So in building the platform, that was top of mind. So, working with attorneys who are experts in that field to make sure we know how we're building it and that it's going to be compliant with UPL laws is really critical.
All right, sounds good. Well, I tell you what, Dave, that's a great place to put a pin in it for today, which means we're putting a pin in on FPA NorCal, which was another great conference. It did not disappoint. So thanks for joining us for the 2 days of coverage. Next up in about 2 weeks is going to be JOLT, which is going to be an exciting conference down in Nashville, Tennessee. All marketing for the 2 days straight with some real fun content creators we're going to get on as well. So join us for that. But for now, on behalf of goRIA, fueled by Investment News, I'm Chuck Vela. We'll see you in a few weeks from Nashville, Tennessee. Take care. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.